what is called the structural theoretical orientation in Indian sociology. As I have said about culturological orientation, where you can see the theoretical tendencies exist in culturological orientations, and these theoretical tendencies are primarily related to the studies like village communities, caste structure, or institutional correlation between family, kinship, religious ideology of people in the village. So culturological approach largely deal with these aspects. So you will find theoretical tendencies. I think I have referred to M.N. Srinivas, then I refer to Robert Redfield, then also I refer to Mackie Marriott. I think all these studies will find certain theoretical tendencies exist in this analysis. You may have a question, sir, what are the theoretical tendencies exist? So the theoretical tendencies, what I mean to say, whether it is little tradition or great traditions for that matter. So there is a theoretical tendencies exist. What is called little traditions? Whether little traditions, villages are considered to be little traditions, and slowly little traditions becoming part of great traditions. So little tradition and great tradition journey, you can see there you can locate the theoretical tendencies in this village and the relation between village and cities. So these theoretical tendencies. If you go a little further, you'll find that most of these village studies or these culturological studies were anthropological in nature, and it is based on observational techniques having a holistic character. First point, anthropological nature. For that matter, M.N. Srinivas, he was trained anthropologist from British anthropology traditions. So therefore, whether it's Mackie Marriott, Robert Redfield, M.N. Srinivas, in their writings you can see how there is a anthropological way of analyzing village, you can see. But you may have a question again, sir, how it is different from sociological if it is anthropological? That is a question needs to be find out whether it is a real sense of anthropological or in real sense is sociological. I think we should not go into the debate of anthropological, but Yogen Singh says largely these studies are anthropological in orientation. Simple society, simple analytical framework, the didactic relationship between people, between communities. I think they are sociological as well as anthropological, but Yogen Singh says these studies are largely anthropological in nature, as well as the techniques. It also suffices the argument of anthropological or to be a nature of anthropological. What does it suffice? It suffices the observational technique. Mostly the observational technique is followed by the anthropologist. So these studies used or adopted observational technique, and these observational techniques make this argument much more clear. These studies were anthropological in nature. So I have given 3 points. Anthropological because it tries to study small society. It tries to study the didactic relationship exists between communities, between people. Third, the observational technique, largely this observational technique is being used by the anthropologist. So in that sense, I think Yogen Singh is trying to say these studies pertaining to the culturological approach were anthropological in nature and it follows the observational techniques. The third point I have said it's holistic in nature. Now, what is called a holistic? Holistic, you can say that you try to look at village in a very comprehensive manner. That is, taking each and every aspects of the village communities into your study or into your analysis. So therefore, it is holistic in nature, means taking all aspects of the village society is taken into considerations while studying. But you may have a question, sir, if you talk about M.N. Srinivas studies, he studied the religion and society among the Kurds of South India. That is the book, for example. So he is not giving a holistic analysis, sir. He is only talking about religion. So the dominant aspect here is religion. So holistic. I think these are the aspects related to culturological approach in Indian sociology. But if you take a clue from these village studies and to locate how does it differs from structural orientation, then you have to contextualize 3-4 important aspects. Then only you can see the shifting from culturological theoretical orientation to structural theoretical orientation. So to see the difference, you have to locate 3-4 important points. What are these 3 important points? F.G. Bailey, what he writes, what he suggests, because to differentiate between culturological and structural theoretical orientations, what F.G. Bailey is trying to argue to make this distinction much more clear. F.G. Bailey says, in structural studies, we ought not to confine ourselves to the raw material provided by the principles that people themselves give. I'll repeat, don't worry. Our only task is not to make sense of the flagrant contradictions in popular thought by abstracting out consistent element in that culturological study attempts to. I'll repeat this point. What F.G. Bailey is trying to argue to make a distinction between structural theoretical orientation and culturological theoretical orientations. He says that we should not confine ourselves as a student of society. We should not confine ourselves to the raw material provided by the principles that people themselves give. This is the crux of the argument. Principles that people themselves give. We should not confine to it. You people are doing your project work, isn't it? And you know that how much serious you are, isn't it? That you are doing your project very, very serious, isn't it? But you know how much labor you have done. This itself is one principle, how seriously you are engrossed with your project, which starts from the very beginning of the semester. That is a principle which is given to you to evaluate yourself, to judge yourself. Second, the teachers, those who are engaged in conducting this project work, DSFC, they also know how seriously I have engaged with my students to make them learn. I think these are called principles that people themselves give, and we should not confine ourselves to such raw materials which is given by the people. Let me go a little further. In the project work, you go and talk to people. How many respondents? You will say, sir, 5 respondents. These panchayat representatives are not available, sir. Sir, have taken telephonic interview. This is also another principle. Then the third important aspect, sir, my respondent said this. So therefore, this is the answer. So I think this is called the principle people has given to you, and you are stick to that. That's all. Actually, that is not the correct approach. What F.G. Bailey is trying to say. F.G. Bailey is trying to say that we ought not to confine ourselves to this. Then what we should do? If we don't confine to this, what is required for us to find out or understand or find out a valid sociological understanding that can be achieved by making abstractions immediately from behavior. This is the first point, what I am trying to argue. F.G. Bailey says that we should not confine ourselves to the principles that people themselves give. So what is the duty of a student of society or sociology? The duty of the student of sociologist or duty of the student of sociology is to find out a valid understanding. How to find out a valid understanding about the event or what you are studying? That has to be done by making certain abstractions from the behavior of the people or from other non-verbal observations and communications when you interact with your respondents. I think what is research and what is research methodology all about? And who has taught you that if you do this, then methodology will be wrong? You have to make your point clear what is research. If you want to make it clear, then go back to the 5 questions I have raised. What questions? Why questions? How questions? And what it should be? and what it ought to be. Ask these 5 questions. I think that is the essential principle of research. Number 2, methodology. Methodology, there is a difference between methods, methodology and tools of data collections. You have to be very, very careful and must prepare from now onwards to what is called a method, what is called methodology, and what is called tools of data collection. So, the first point is, I've said what is research. The second point is, when you say methodology, methodology involves 3 things. First, the philosophy. What is philosophy? Methodology has no link with philosophy. No. Methodology is heavily based on the principles of philosophy, of the discipline. Clear? So the philosophical base, and where to draw this philosophical base? You can draw from the writings of the founding fathers and draw the philosophical nuances out of it. And that will help you to locate research. So, how to locate these philosophical principles? By referring to the writings of the sociologists or the writings of the founding father of such disciplines. So philosophy or methodology is broad, where the philosophical principles are given much more importance. But when you talk about tools of data collections, what are the tools you adopt to gather the information? Yeah. So for your project, you have adopted questionnaire or you adopted interview schedule, but there is a difference between what is called a questionnaire and what is called an interview schedule. You must know the distinction between these two. And the point here is, what the basic argument I was trying to find out, by making abstractions immediately from behavior or from other non-verbal informations by using our own concepts, that you are supposed to do as a student of society. What you are supposed to do? Form abstractions out of the interactions. What does it mean? It may not be clear to you, I know. Let me give lighter examples. When you meet your friend and after the meeting is over, and the meeting was for maybe 3 hours, you must ask these questions. क्या हुआ आज? क्या बात किया मैंने आज? हम भी जब यहाँ से जाते हैं तो पूछते हैं आज मैंने क्या पढ़ा है, कुछ पढ़ा है या नहीं? Whether I've given something substantive to the students or not. कभी तो लगता है वो तो कुछ ऐसे बोल दिया जाए. Coming back and reflecting on it is required for your life. If you don't do this, then you will be in trouble. As a teacher, I must caution you. In a lighter mode, this is called a kind of abstractions you draw immediately after the interactions. So actually, this is called abstractions immediately you draw from the verbal, non-verbal informations or communication you had. And if people like me will ask you that you yesterday were not here in the class, I saw you in coffee house and you are with someone, give me right 2 pages right up on that. तुम कहोगे कि कौन से सर आपने मुझे देख लिया तो फंसा रहे. ये आपको लगता है ये फंसाना है कि टीचर जो है वो हर चीज में एकेडमिक्स ढूंढता है. If you are a student of society in a serious manner, when you go for field work for your project, after coming back from the field, what you are supposed to do? You have to write 2-3 pages. That is called field visit diary. You have to write that. That means you have gone to the field to gather the information, collect the information. That is called abstractions immediately from behavior of the people to whom you have interacted with. That interaction may be verbal, non-verbal, observational. But you must be thinking, sir, you are supposed to teach structural theoretical orientation. You are held up here, isn't it? No, actually, Bailey, what is trying to argue that how culturological studies and structural studies are different. So while making such difference, the first point is saying that we are not supposed to confine ourselves to the raw materials provided by the principle people give themselves. That means the way people have explained, we should not confine ourselves to that. Here. Secondly, what we have to do? We have to form a kind of abstractions out of such interactions or out of such verbal, non-verbal gestures and communications, and elaborate it by using our own concepts. That will give you a kind of framework to analyze the society. This is the point he is trying to make. Second important point what F.G. Welly is trying to argue, again 3 points. The first one he is trying to say the preeminence of concepts or models is one characteristic of structural studies. What is the characteristic of structural studies? The characteristic of structural studies to have the preeminence of concepts or models. What is called preeminence of concepts and models? What are the important concepts or what are the important models? So these important concepts and models are very, very important. That means you have to find out the important concepts and models. Preeminence means important. The preeminence of concepts or models is one characteristic of structural studies. That means structural studies try to find out what are the important concepts, what are the important models, what you elaborated from the interactions by having abstractions immediately coming out of the fieldwork. So preeminence concepts and models. Remember the coffee house story. The preeminence concepts. What are the preeminence concepts? You can say, no, when I went, my boyfriend come with a bouquet. So bouquet is not like. Otherwise, if people like me will be there, he has come just like this. He has no sense. Look at the narrations. If you happens to meet me, I will not come with a bouquet. You say, such a non-romantic kind of person he is. He hasn't come with a bouquet. So your frustration starts. So preeminence, you have to find out the important underlying happenings. Maybe in sociological sense, important concepts and models. Okay, so make a comparison. If you have read Weber, what is Weber's ideal type? And why he has given ideal type? He has given ideal type because he said, write down the characteristics of ideal type or ideal society, ideal bureaucracy, ideal boyfriend, ideal husband or ideal wife. Write down all these points. Then what has happened? Write down the other sides. Then you can see the distinctions. What are the natures and characteristics of ideal society, ideal democracy or ideal situations or ideal husband or ideal wife? Then what is the real? And I think that will help you to reach to a context. I think that is called find out the preeminence concepts and models. That is the first characteristic of structural studies. Is this clear? Here in sociology, the preeminence of concepts and models, what you derive out of such interactions. तुमको सर वो कुछ इम्पोर्टेंट कॉन्सेप्ट क्या है? कोई इम्पोर्टेंट कॉन्सेप्ट तो होगा ही नहीं. हमने उससे गौरव से मिल लिया, बातें कर ली, नोट कर लिए. बट समथिंग यही सोचना है कि what are the preeminent points? I think F.G. Welly is trying to say these preeminent concepts and models are the first characteristics of structural studies. Second, I'll only talk about 2 more points. When you do this, the other important attributes of structural studies will be related to the nature of problem you undertake for observations and analysis. This is the second attributes of structural studies, that you must try to find out the nature of problems you are studying and how this nature of problems you are studying can be analyzed and observed. And while making such analysis, you can see the cleavages and differentiation in society. What is the second attribute I am trying to say? The second attributes of the structural studies is to find out the nature of the society. or the nature of the problem you are engaged in. So find out the nature of problems. You may have a question, sir, what is called nature of problem? Problems are problems, what is the nature of it? Boys are boys, girls are girls, what is called nature? Isn't it? Nature you have to find out. Oh, when I say that Gaurav is a very good student, the nature of Gaurav is very friendly, polite, helpful. Isn't it? Or, in other words, Gaurav बहुत aggressive है, झगड़ा करता रहता है. ठीक है ना? बात मत करो उससे. हाय गौरव कैसे हो? ठीक हो? हाँ चलो भाग गए. नेचर. फिर कहोगे ये तो गौरव का नेचर हो गया. सर वो प्रॉब्लम्स कहाँ है? सो प्रॉब्लम्स जो है उसकी नेचर को समझना पड़ेगा. वो कैसे समझाना है? सो नेचर of a problem has to be explored, understood and analyzed. वही coffee house. If you come back, analyzed. Out of such analysis, you can find the nature. Out of such analysis only, you can find the nature of your interactions or the nature of the problems you have undertaken. Let me give an example of a doctor. If you go to a doctor, for you, doctor is not your boyfriend, neither a girlfriend. Is it so? For a doctor, you are a case, you are a patient. So he has to study the case or he has to study the patient. And how does he do that? He'll ask, what is the problem you have? The first question if you meet a doctor, हाँ बताइए क्या problem है आपको? Clear? So you narrate. Then if he is clear with the narrations, he will not have further questions. But if he has some confusions, then कहेंगे कितने दिन से है, कैसे शुरू हुआ? Case study. That is also case history, very technical. Like you study society. I think that will help you to find out the nature of the problem you are having. So how does nature we can find out? To explore, to talk, to ask consistent questions. Another point for your life, for free, but I would have charged you for this. ठीक है ना? इसके लिए पैसा लूंगा तो तुम मेरे बात मानोगे. You know how to believe someone. किससे भरोसा कर सकते हैं भाई? भरोसा किसी पे नहीं करना चाहिए. और अगर भरोसा करना है तो then you take time. First characteristic is time. Second, frequent meeting. वो कहोगे सर वो अरेंज मैरिज जो होता था कोई फ्रीक्वेंट मीटिंग का था नहीं, कोई टाइम का था नहीं, सब सक्सेसफुल रहा, तो उल्टा सीधा चीज बता रहे हो क्लास में. Isn't it? That is a different setup because the cultural and social institutions are so powerful. They would never allow you to go out of box. But in today's society, everything is out of box. So there, the institutional forces so powerful, so bonding. Of course, if you are a feminist, कहोगे ये separation है. But I don't see it as separation, it's a bonding. It's affections. It is a kind of system which forces you to behave or work in a particular manner. No, I'll give you another example. जब हम लोग लड़कियों को विवाह कर देते हैं, क्या कहते हैं? वो ससुराल के रोज आए दिन की प्रॉब्लम्स आपको बताने लगी. मेरे सास ऐसे कर रही है, मेरी बहू ऐसे कर रही है, भाभी ऐसे कर रही है, ननंद ऐसे कर रही है कि नहीं? वन क्लू. ठीक है, तुम लोग बुरा मत मानना मेरे से. एक ही क्लू है कि बेटे तुम्हारा शादी हमने करा दिया, ये तुम्हारा घर संसार है, तुम उसको समझो, मैनेज करो. इफ यू गिव दिस फ्रेमवर्क, then complaints will be reduced. Otherwise, of course, nowadays because of this mobile, everything is disturbed. क्या खाना पक रहा है वो यहाँ पता चल रहा है, देवर ने क्या कह दिया वो तुरंत आपके यहाँ पता चल जा रहा है. फॉक्स प्रॉब्लम. सो इसलिए शादी के बाद जो है जो एडजस्टमेंट की जो प्रॉब्लम्स है वो बढ़ रहा है कि नहीं? वो घट नहीं रहा है क्योंकि कोई इंस्टीट्यूशन है ही नहीं, कोई किसी को मानने को तैयार नहीं है, कोई किसी को सुनने को तैयार नहीं है. क्लियर है? सो द पॉइंट व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग टू आर्ग्यू, I was trying to talk about the nature of problems you are studying. That is possible when you observe and analyze. Observations and analysis will give you the answer to find out the nature of the society you are studying. So to find out the nature of this society you are studying, what is required? Observations and analysis. If you go by the second point, what you will find? You can find the process of structural cleavages and differentiation in societies. If you do this analysis, observations to find out the nature, that will provide you the cleavages, the divisions in society, and that also will help you to find out the differentiation in society exists. So nature will provide what? Cleavages or differentiation or hierarchies or cordiality. So all these things will be provided if you study the nature of the problem you are undertaking. So the third point is the structural elements will also help you to unearth the problems of equality and inequality, or it will help you to find out the study of power structure, social stratification, social mobility, urbanizations, industrializations, changes in the demographic and family structure. I think all these things will be clear to you only when you try to find out the preeminent concepts and models exist in the observations and analysis of the society you are studying, number one. Number two, it will help you to find out the nature of the society, and nature of the society will help you to further explore the cleavage and the differentiations. It will also help you to find out the equality and inequality exist in society. It will also help you to find out the social mobility. It will also help you to find out the urbanization and industrializations. It will also help you to find out social stratifications and changes in the demographic and family structure. Such studies, means all structural studies, have a macro, structural and historical perspectives. This is the last point. All such studies done structural aspects or structural theoretical oriented studies will have a macro structural and historical perspective to reveal or to explore. So, what exactly the point I have tried to argue, that culturological and structural theoretical orientations, there is a difference. The difference is been given by F.G. Bailey, and what he is trying to make this difference clear, that you should not confine yourself to the raw material provided by the respondents. He said principles that people themselves give, you should not confine to it. This is the first point. Second, a valid sociological understanding needs to be developed. How? It has to be developed by making abstractions immediately after your interactions, and the interactions, observations, non-observations, but immediate abstraction is required. Then if you do this, then you can derive what are the important concepts and models are derived out of it. Thirdly, it will help you to find out the nature of the problems you are trying to study, and that can be further explored or understood by observations and analysis. And if you do these observations and analysis, then that will help you to find out whether equality, inequality exists in society, what kind of problems, what kind of power structure, what kind of changes has taken place. All these things will be clear to you to provide a macro structural historical perspective to this analysis. So, if you have difficulties, refer to the model of coffee house which I have given to you. This is the model which I have given to you. Thank you.